In January of 897, a decomposing corpse was dug up, dressed in papal robes, and propped on a throne inside a Roman courtroom. The body had been dead for 9 months. A lawyer was appointed to speak on its behalf. And the living pope sitting across from it screamed accusations at a rotting face that could not answer back. You were never taught this in school. And there is a reason for that. This is not a legend. This is not a medieval myth twisted by time. This is documented history. It happened inside the Basilica of St. John Lateran in Rome, the most powerful Christian court in the world. And it shook the Catholic Church so violently that 3 popes died within 12 months of its verdict. Let me take you back to the year 896. Pope Formosus had been one of the most ambitious and controversial popes of the 9th century. He had served as a bishop, a papal legate, a diplomat. He had crowned Lambert of Spoleto as Holy Roman Emperor in 892. Then he changed sides. He crowned Lambert's rival, Arnulf of Carinthia, in 896. That political betrayal made him powerful enemies. Very powerful enemies. Formosus died in April of 896. He was around 75 years old. He had held the papacy for 5 years. His death should have ended his story. It did not. Stephen VI became pope in May of 896. Stephen hated Formosus. He hated what he stood for, the alliances he had built, and the decisions he had made. Stephen was aligned with the house of Spoleto, the very dynasty Formosus had humiliated by crowning their enemy. Stephen wanted revenge. He wanted more than revenge. He wanted Formosus erased from history. So Stephen did something that had never been done before and has never been done since. He ordered the body of Formosus exhumed. 9 months after burial, the corpse was pulled from its tomb, dressed in full papal vestments, and carried into a formal church synod. A throne was placed for it. A deacon was assigned to speak in its defense. And then the trial began. Stephen stood in that room and screamed at a decaying body. He charged Formosus with perjury. He charged him with serving as a bishop while already holding another diocese, which violated church law. He charged him with crowning the wrong emperor. He called him a fraud, a usurper, and a disgrace to the papal office. The body could not respond. The defense lawyer reportedly said almost nothing. The verdict was predetermined. Formosus was found guilty on every charge. What followed was deliberate and theatrical humiliation. The 3 fingers on Formosus's right hand used for ordinations were cut off. His papal vestments were torn from the corpse. He was dressed in the clothes of a common layman. All of his ordinations were declared null and void. Every priest he had ever ordained was invalidated. Every bishop, every act he had ever performed as pope was retroactively erased. Then his body was thrown into the Tiber River. If you are wondering how people reacted, the answer is badly. Very badly. Subscribe right now. This channel covers the history they never put in your textbooks. New stories every week. The Roman populace was horrified. The Synod created a theological crisis that rippled outward immediately. If the ordinations of Formosus were invalid, then every priest he had ordained was not actually a priest. Every mass they had said was not valid. Every confession they had heard meant nothing. The spiritual lives of thousands of people had been retroactively cancelled by a man screaming at a corpse. And here is where it gets even stranger. A monk reportedly pulled the body of Formosus out of the Tiber. There were immediate claims of miracles at the site where the body had washed ashore. The people of Rome began turning against Stephen VI with terrifying speed. Within months of the Cadaver Synod, Stephen was arrested by a Roman mob. He was stripped of his papal vestments, thrown into prison, and strangled to death. He had been pope for less than 2 years. The reversal came quickly. Pope Theodore II held a synod of his own just weeks after Stephen's death. He rehabilitated Formosus entirely. The Cadaver Synod was declared invalid. The body of Formosus was recovered, dressed again in papal vestments, and reburied with full honors at St. Peter's Basilica. But the chaos was not finished. 3 popes died between 897 and 900. The political fractures exposed by the Cadaver Synod drove a period of such intense instability that historians call the late 9th and early 10th centuries the darkest era in papal history. Some scholars have called it the pornocracy, a period when Roman noble families essentially purchased and disposed of popes at will. The Cadaver Synod had not created that instability, but it had ripped away the veil. It had shown that the office of pope could be used as a weapon of personal vengeance. It had demonstrated that church law could be bent into almost any shape a powerful man wanted. That lesson was not forgotten. Reformers in the 11th century pointed directly back to 897 as proof that the church needed structural independence from political families. The Gregorian reform, which reshaped the medieval Catholic Church and led directly to the investiture controversy, drew its moral urgency partly from events like the Cadaver Synod. The argument was simple. A church that could put a corpse on trial for political revenge was a church that had lost its way. The Cadaver Synod survives in the historical record as the clearest possible image of what happens when institutional power is captured entirely by personal hatred. Stephen did not just try a dead man. He tried the legitimacy of an entire institution. And the institution nearly did not survive it. The body in the throne was not the strangest thing in that room. The strangest thing was every living person who watched and said nothing until it was too late. If you want more history that never made it into the classroom, subscribe and hit the bell. Next week we are going back somewhere even darker.